Well, Dr. Craig, there are not a lot of smart Christians out there, apparently, according to this article. There's only a few. There's me, you, and Homer Simpson, maybe. I don't know. But this article from Salon gets passed around a lot. Religion's Smart People Problem. The Shaky Intellectual Foundations of Absolute Faith, from John G. Messerly, who taught at University of Texas, Austin. And the byline is, religious belief the world over has a strenuous relationship with intellectualism, but why? We've dealt with some things like this before, like with various surveys of scientists or philosophers, how many are theists, how many are pantheists, how many are atheists, and so on. And it might be a good time to maybe refresh some of that.
Well, that's exactly what he leads with in the opening paragraph. He says, most academic philosophers do not believe in God. A comprehensive survey revealed that only about 14% of English-speaking professional philosophers are theists. And what little religious belief remains among their colleagues, most professional philosophers regard it as a strange aberration in otherwise intelligent people. Now, he doesn't footnote his claim, but undoubtedly what he has to be referring to is the Chalmers and Bourget survey of philosophers that has gotten a lot of press. And when this survey came out, Kevin, I was immediately puzzled because I thought, I've never received any such survey, and neither did any of my colleagues at Talbot. There are 17 professional philosophers on our campus. None of them were surveyed. And I wondered, well, exactly who received this survey? Well, when you look into it, what you find is that this survey only was sent to 1,972 philosophers, less than 2,000 philosophers, and it was sent to faculty only from 99 selected departments of philosophy, just 99, and only 62 out of the 99 were in the United States. The rest are foreign, in Europe and Australia and so forth. Of the 1,972 that were surveyed, do you know how many actually responded? Less than half. Only 931 philosophers completed this survey, and yet this is supposed to be a comprehensive study of the belief about philosophers about God. Now, Rodney Stark, who is a sociologist at Baylor University, has pointed out that in his professional training for sociology, he says that unless a survey has a response rate of 85%, you're not to trust the results of that survey. This survey had a response rate of less than 48%, a mere 931 philosophers. And if you look at the list of institutions to which this survey was sent, it was almost entirely secular universities. It wasn't sent to places like Talbot or Wheaton or Westmont or even many Catholic institutions. So far from exposing the intellectual deficiency of Christian philosophers, the appeal to this survey, I think, shows the intellectual deficiency of John Messerly's argument. Here he just cites some survey without looking into it in any detail to see whom it was sent to, how many people it was sent to, how many responded to it. Instead, he just cites something that confirms what he already wanted to believe. It really shows the intellectual deficiency of his own argument. He then goes on to use the old canard that among surveys of the members of the National Academy of Sciences, religious belief among them is practically non-existent, about 7%. And again, he never tells us how many were surveyed, how many responded to the survey. Doesn't tell us what the questions were, nor does he even look into the cultural factors that might influence who gets into the National Academy of Science. By contrast, in 2009, the Pew Research Center did a survey of the members of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. They came to quite different results. They reported that 51% of scientists say that they believe in God or a higher power, while 41% say that they do not. And the Pew people point out that this is virtually unchanged from the time when the scientific community was first polled on this issue back in 1914. It is virtually the same percentage. It hasn't changed over the course of 100 years. Now, what's further interesting is a study that was conducted by the Rice University sociologist Elaine Eklund, reported in 2005. She surveyed over 1,600 faculty members at elite research universities, and what Eklund discovered was that the beliefs of scientists in God or not are typically formed before they chose their career path to go into science. It was when they were adolescents or younger, and then they chose to go into a particular field of study. So that their disbelief among that percentage that does disbelief isn't a reflection of their scientific training or their intellectual prowess. Those beliefs were formed prior to their entry into the career path of science. So when you look beneath the surface of these statistics, they don't at all say what people like Messerly are so eager to make them say.
I'm glad we had a chance to kind of go over that again, Bill, and but it just seems like essays and articles like this are worthless in so many ways for the reasons you cite, but also he names all of these components for why a person may hold the view that he holds: biological, cultural, genetic, and things like that. Mm-hmm. Well, what about his view that he holds?
Exactly. They never seem to realize that if you think that the beliefs we hold are the result of genes and social conditioning and all those sorts of things, well, what's sauce for the goose
not
is
me.
sauce for the gander. Right,
Yeah,
not me.
not
I've
me.
transcended all of those
I sure
influences on my beliefs.
Sword cuts both ways. He says, so why then do some highly educated people believe...
Now, I want to make one more point before we get to that. The other thing is that the man has an incredibly naive view about the roots of modern secularism. He notes that since the time of the Enlightenment, in contrast to the Middle Ages, when Christianity was dominant in the West, now we have a very secular post-Enlightenment society. And he says, well, this is because of the growth of modern science, and we have basically outgrown these infantile religious beliefs. Kevin, I think at face value, that's an incredibly naive view of the progress of history. The roots of modern secularism and the Enlightenment, I think, largely lie in people's abhorrence and distaste for the violence done in the name of religion and the wars of religion that racked Europe and the persecution between Catholic and Protestant that tore Europe apart. The church was aligned with the monarchy in these pre-Enlightenment periods. And so when the modern democratic movement threw off the monarchy, it threw off the church as well, because the church and the monarchy were aligned as part of the old order, the Ancien Régime. And so these roots of modern secularism lie primarily in cultural and sociological factors, not intellectual factors as he would have us believe. I don't think any historian would take seriously his simplistic claims about the roots of modern secularism and the secular state that dominates in Europe today.
He says, Now, why do smart people have some of the views that they have? Well, first, smart persons are good at defending ideas that they originally believed for non-smart reasons. They want to believe something, say for emotional reasons, and then become adept at defending those beliefs. Well, he's a smart guy defending his beliefs, so that's
I'll
the
bet
pot
you
calling
anything he held these beliefs before he did his university and graduate work. That he is a smart guy, not too successfully finding smart reasons to defend his originally formed not smart beliefs. He's just calling the kettle. He's the pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah, I think so. And that's what we all have to look out for, that we can we can pull the rug out from under ourselves often when we think we have this privileged position.
Yes, and it's so condescending, isn't it?
Yes.
You don't deal with the arguments that the person offers on behalf of his beliefs. Rather, you try to explain the origin of those beliefs away. And this is just a textbook example of the genetic fallacy, trying to invalidate what a person believes by showing how he came to believe them. And you notice there's nothing in this article that interacts with the intellectual defenses that intelligent religious people give for their worldview. Instead, it is all this condescending attempt to explain it away as due to non-rational factors that influence them.
I wanted to bring up something else that I underlined here, Bill, again, because it's something that I run into, and that is, well, you guys who are philosophers and theologians and who are thinkers, you smart people who are religious or Christians, you have a different idea, or you have a different concept of God and these things, more sophisticated theology than the general populace, than the population. And, okay, so what's your point there? That may be true. It doesn't make the claims of Christ true or false that sophisticated and unsophisticated people follow him. You still have to deal with the claims. But it's also saying, okay, I'm going to go after the weak link. I'm going to go after these poor people who have this hillbilly theology, because they're the ones that we run into every day. And so often the rebuttal or the reply is well, that is not the definition of, if I say that is not the definition of faith, that's a poor concept of God, that is not the biblical teaching right there. It's like, yeah, but that's what most people that I run into say it is. So, well, that's an internal problem that we have in educating our people, or whatever.
Right. His point seems to be that we shouldn't take too seriously the religious beliefs of sophisticated thinkers because they don't have the same sort of beliefs that the great unwashed populace does. But if that's the case, then he needs to come to grips with those more sophisticated beliefs and show how they're somehow unwarranted or that what they believe is false. And he doesn't do that.
Well, Bill, I'm happy to announce that some real intellectual giants are in the history of Christian philosophy, theistic philosophy, and there's some pretty smart people still around today.
Absolutely, Kevin. We are living at a time of a renaissance of Christian intellectual endeavor, particularly in the field of philosophy, in which I work, but then also in the field of historical studies of the New Testament with regard to the life of Jesus, and I would also say in the physical sciences. The physical sciences are more open today to the existence of a transcendent creator and designer of the cosmos than at any time in recent memory. For all his bravado, Messerly is fighting a battle in retreat. The fact is that Christian intellectual endeavor is on the ascendancy in our day and age, and I think this bodes very well as this percolates throughout popular culture and begins to reform its thinking as well.